You are listening to the Southwestern American Choral Directors Association Connections podcast, where we will interview choral directors, leaders, and movers and shakers within our region. I'm your host, Dr. Jeff Wall. We hope you enjoy these conversations. Please like and subscribe this YouTube channel for future content. Hello, everyone, again. Thank you for joining me for another episode. And I hope that you are enjoying listening to these conversations and getting to know some of these R&R chairs and knowing that they are a resource for you. Today, I'm joined with Dr. Tatiana Taylor. She is the Director of Choral Activities at Northeastern Oklahoma A&M College, two-year college. She is also our R&R chair for two-year colleges. And Dr. Taylor holds the Doctor of Musical Arts degree in choral music from the University of Southern California with an emphasis in sacred music, music education, and vocal pedagogy. She also has a Master of Music in Choral Conducting from the University of Oklahoma and a Bachelor of Arts degree in music from Rhodes College. I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. And now I bring you Tatiana Taylor. All right, good morning, and thank you for joining me for another episode of the Connections podcast. I'm here today with Tatiana Taylor. It's good to see you again, Tatiana. Thank you for coming on the pod.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Maybe first you can tell us a little bit about your backstory, tell us about yourself, your musical upbringing, and kind of what you do in the world.
Sure. Well, I'm currently the director of choral activities and vocal music at NEO A&M College in Tiny Pocket in Northeastern Oklahoma here in Miami. And that means that I teach two choirs, all the sections of sight singing and oral skills, a couple of sections of music appreciation, and all of the vocal lessons here in at the college. And as far as musical upbringing, I grew up with a lot of music in my house. My mother plays piano, my father plays the guitar. They're both singers. I actually started learning piano because I was expected to play in church for services, and sang in church from the time I was 3 years old, sang in choir from the time I was in junior high because it wasn't offered at the younger stages. So music's just been a part of my life for a really long time. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Where did you grow up?
Well, I started my life actually in Central America, in Honduras and Costa Rica, because my parents were missionaries. And then all of a sudden we ended up in Northwest Arkansas, of all places. So kind of translated over there. And that's where I did the majority of my studies from the time I was 11 up until I left for college. So.
Great. And when did you find your love for choral music specifically?
In junior high, actually, in Central Junior High, got roped into choir, well, formal choir. So got to sing under Gretchen Harris. And so got to sing there, and then went on to high school and did the whole 9 yards. So really enjoyed it.
Gotcha. What about your degrees? Where did you go to school?
Did my undergrad at Rhodes College in Memphis, Tennessee, then did my master's at OU, and then ended up at the University of Southern California with a short stint at CU Boulder. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Excellent. Okay. We'll get into some of these questions a little later where you can maybe tell us a little bit about your mentors and that kind of thing. But first, tell us a little bit about your role for Southwestern ACDA. Tell us what you'll be doing for us and maybe anything you're excited about or looking forward to in that role.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to be the 2-year college repertoire and resource chair. So I get to focus on providing resources targeted to the community colleges, 2-year colleges. So that's what I get to focus on, and I'm just really excited to be in that role.
Excellent. Yeah, we're glad to have you in that position. And we were just talking. We're doing these little interviews, hopefully to introduce the membership to you all as R&R chairs, and let them know that hey, you are a resource that they can reach out to for ideas, tips, tricks. You'll also be, I think, contributing repertoire lists and articles for the Southwestern Connection magazine that's being curated by Jonathan Owen and Margie Camp and being released bi-monthly. So we're excited about those initiatives too. Okay, so moving on, what is a piece of music that you think maybe best embodies your personality?
So it's technically not a choral piece. My mother is a literature specialist, and so I grew up with a lot of stories. And so I fell in love with the story of Scheherazade. And so my favorite piece growing up was Scheherazade by Rimsky-Korsakov. And so that is one of my favorite things. And so it kind of embodies my personality because I've always been really curious about those types of stories, and something that would take, 1,000 nights has always perked my interest. So that's one of my favorite things.
Oh, that's super cool. Yeah, you're one of the very few that have said a non-choral piece for that question. So I'm glad to get that answer. Okay, so then what is your desert island choral piece? Maybe only one that you could have with you before you would be saved.
So for that, it's one of the pieces that I was introduced to at the University of Southern California, which is Go Lovely Rose by Halsey Stevens. It's just such a beautiful piece. So just something that I could listen to all day long. So
Yeah, I love that piece. Yeah, I just actually was looking at that in our library the other day. Um, yeah, that's beautiful. And that's one that's on loop for you that you would never get tired of, huh?
yes.
That's great. That's great. Okay. In terms of programming, do you have a particular style or philosophy of programming that you sort of default to when you're programming maybe a mixed bag um, of a concert with lots of different single octavos? Maybe we're not talking about a major work, but one of those kind of concerts. What are your thoughts there?
Um, I really try to have my singers have a variety of, genres and styles, but in when you look at my programs, there's usually a vein that I try to tie them to, either whether it's text or a theme. And so, for example, last semester we explored different types of love that a human encounters throughout their lifetime. Um, but even though there's a singularity of, either a text or a theme, there is a variety of genres and styles throughout that. But I think it's important, because I teach at this level, for my students to be exposed to all different types of styles, because they don't come from a background where they get that chance. And also community members who come to the concerts to be exposed to that as well. So.
Yeah, you touched on something there, and we've talked about it with a few other guests, but programming not just for the singers that are in front of you, but also for the audience and what they need to and what they need to hear. Can you talk just for a little bit about the unique perspective that you have as two-year college and the turnover rate that you might have with your students, that those of us that are maybe in high school positions or in four-year college positions, or that maybe have grad programs and those sorts of things. How does that guide your thinking in terms of programming?
You're absolutely right. Just because I have them for such a short amount of time, I have to think semester wise as opposed to year wise, as far as how many things I get to expose them to. So um, every semester I try to touch on something different. So first semester, I try to expose them to maybe a language thing. Second semester, maybe a different culture thing. Third semester, so my programming is guided by semesters, not so much a yearly thing, to try to pack in as many experiences as possible for my singers.
Yeah, that's got to be difficult to try to jam pack everything into a compressed, 2 years. I say compressed because I'm on sort of that four-year model myself with my students. And I can think of things in terms of the four-year experience. And well, as long as I get to this particular genre, style, language, um, culture, those sorts of things within a four-year scope, I feel like I've kind of checked the box. But you're on an accelerated path there with your students, and I would imagine also with the exposure of music to your audiences as well. Having to, when you have to um, reprise something or reprise a style or genre or whatever, that you want to maintain and hold your audience's attention. Um, what do you think of in terms of that as far as the focus on the audience? How do you guide your programming in terms of what the audience might need?
Well, sometimes it has to do with celebrating what they already know. Sometimes I try to program around what is part of their community already. So we have, for example, at NEO, we have 9 tribes that are part of our community. So there have been some semesters where I have tried to bring in that into the programming to try to celebrate that culture and that heritage. We're also in Northeastern Oklahoma, so sometimes, I try to bring in things about Oklahoma to try to bring in that background into the programming because we want to celebrate the fact that we are from Oklahoma and that there are students from this area. So sometimes, yes, it's bringing in diversity from other cultures and other places, but it's also trying to bring the community closer together and saying, hey, we're all from this state, we're all from this part of the state. So it just depends on what you're trying to do in that particular semester, how much connectivity you're trying to bring into that semester. What does your student body look like that semester? What does it feel like in that semester? You just really have to keep, I think, um, your finger on the pulse of your ensemble throughout each semester because it changes, especially here at a 2-year college, it changes all the time.
Yeah, and I'm sorry for going off script a little bit here. I'm just interested because as you know, I'm in Northeastern State University here in the headquarters of Cherokee Nation, and we have uh, similar communities. And one of the things that I've struggled with is because many of in trying to incorporate, the Cherokee heritage into our choral concerts, many of the choral works that we have don't incorporate indigenous music in that
Mhm.
way very well because it wasn't meant for that. Most of the choral works that we have, and maybe you can talk about this in other terms of other genres as well, but they're all arrangements of
Mhm.
maybe things that were used for other, you know, uh, rite, ritual gatherings, those sorts of things. And most of what we have are translated um, church hymns into the
Yes.
Cherokee language. And so, not very many truly uh, authentic indigenous music that can be transcribed or arranged into choral music. So, how do you deal with that kind of a barrier or that kind of challenge that maybe I just spoke of there?
I think one of the things that I'm trying to work on currently is getting in touch with the tribal leaders and trying to get permission to work with uh, choral arrangers actually or choral composers and maybe trying to make some bridges there to maybe produce new music because we do need that in order to have new music that represents that particular culture. Because we don't have that. You're absolutely right. Um, but it's just having those conversations. The I have the advantage that they have meetings on our campus every 3 or 4 months. It's just getting the opportunity to have that face-to-face conversation, and that can be a challenge sometimes because they do have a lot on their agenda. But I think that just having those conversations is going to be important for choral conductors like ourselves in this area.
Yeah, I love that, and I have a similar philosophy of trying to make those connections. Um, and trying to get some new music composed. Often, some of the challenges that I've faced or have faced is, the my understanding, as little as it is, um, of trying to arrange something that was never meant for a choral performance on stage. You know, it was meant for some other purpose. And so while I may have the best intentions for that to happen, um, the culture bearer may say, well, that's not appropriate for this type of music. And so that's been my challenge. So
Yes.
I don't know if you've experienced something in that similar vein.
Somewhat, and it's just maybe trying to find a different avenue, or maybe we just need to compose something completely new, and just talking to them about uh, just a different approach. Maybe that might be the way to go. I'm not sure. I'm learning just as you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'd love to kind of put our heads together and
Yeah,
do some kind of collaboration there for that in the future. That if you're game, we're not too far away from each other.
absolutely.
So yeah. Um, okay, so moving on here, what maybe would a typical rehearsal look like for you under your direction after you've gotten your program sort of set?
I try to keep it to, I only have 50-minute rehearsals 3 times a week, so I have to move things pretty quickly. So 3 exercises for warm-ups. I usually incorporate some sort of uh, body movement into that. Beginning of the semester, I usually have the most challenging piece at the beginning of the rehearsal, move to the easier piece, then a medium piece, and then an easier piece. Um, and then I try to keep the rehearsal pace pretty quick to try to keep the singers engaged. Again, only 50 minutes, so not a lot of time. And it's usually a sandwich method is what I like to call it. But it also has to do with um, this idea that I picked up at USC, which is this, the Fibonacci idea of, trying to keep the mental capacity engaged as much as possible, because with students, they only have certain amount of attention span for, so long. But yeah, harder stuff at the beginning, trying to end with something that they feel good about at the end of the rehearsal. So,
Yeah, that's a great answer, and I have a similar approach, whether it's Fibonacci or golden mean or however you want to think about it.
mhm.
You know, yeah, I think it's important to do all of the voice building and pedagogical things up front, and then music literacy things, skill building, getting into the more challenging things while they're kind of fresh and going, and
Yes.
then towards the end of the rehearsal, leave them singing and leave them with a sense of accomplishment. So yeah, great answer. What general advice might you give yourself at 16 years old with all of the knowledge you have now?
Uh, at 16, I was overly concerned about what everybody thought I should be when I grew up, as opposed to focusing on developing my own skill set. Um, and the other thing is, it's okay not to know what you're going to be when you grow up. It's okay to just be 16. And so those would be the two pieces probably of advice I would give myself at 16 if I could go back.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I think that would resonate with a lot of us at 16 years old. We, and maybe even today, sometimes we worry too much about what other people think. Um, that's the whole game of social media that
Yes.
I myself am trying to peel back away from. It's like you have to think twice of why really am I posting this, right?
Absolutely.
Um, well, maybe this ties in a little bit. Then, what pointers might you have for an emerging choral leader?
Um, I think taking the time to reach out to local choral directors that are already there, um, and just connect with them to help them connect you to the community. One of the things that when I started this post, I was very, very lucky that the people who were in the community helped me get connections to this area, because I knew nothing about Northeastern Oklahoma at all, coming in from Southern California. So I think that as an emerging choral leader, it's important to just get connected into your community, reach out. You'd be surprised how helpful people can be. I think we're just so afraid of people just saying no, but you're never going to know unless you ask. Um, and the other thing is going back to the general advice to 16-year-old, don't compare your career with others. Your path is going to be different. and that's okay. And go to conventions every chance you get because you learn so much. So,
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think one of my mantras is contentment without complacency.
mhm.
So trying to find contentment with where you're at and what you're doing. I think that also ties back to your advice with your 16-year-old self of, don't worry so much about what others are doing and their judgment and all of that. You're on your own path. So I think you had some great tips and ideas there. Um, Connection with the community is super important, um,
Yes.
especially when you're new to the community, much
Yeah.
like you were coming into the position and me as well when I first got here. This is year 11 for me now, and I still feel like, I'm not completely embedded into the community as well as I need to be. So it's a constant battle and struggle. Um, what advice do you think you would give yourself right now if you were, say, in your elder years, say 90 years old or so, looking back to you right now, what advice would you give yourself?
Um, it's okay to slow down and take a break. I'm always going at 90 miles an hour. I'm very much a type A personality, and it just take a break. And I guess the other thing is that careers aren't cookie cutter patterns. Um, every career is different, and that's what makes our job both challenging, but it's fun too. I think we have an idea. I'm in year 8, and I think I had this idea in my head of what it was supposed to look like at certain points, because again, I'm type A, this is at this year it's supposed to be this, and at this year it's supposed to be this. Um, and I think my older self would be like, you know what? It's not, it's okay. It's going to shift and it's going to be different, and just enjoy the ride, and just it's okay. Relax. And I forget that a lot of times. So it's nice to have colleagues and mentors who remind me of that all the time. That it's just okay to just sit back and enjoy the process.
Yeah, I think going back to the whole emerging choral leaders question, maybe some coming out of grad school or, otherwise getting into their first teaching job, those sorts of things might have those ideas of what it's supposed to look like. What were maybe you can zero in on that for a minute. What were your ideas of what you thought it was supposed to look like?
Um, I mean, I thought getting into my first job, I was going to come in and have, 4-day rehearsals, uh, have, 50 voice choir, uh, uh, things like I didn't think I was going to have to teach some of the classes that I was going to be teaching. I thought I was going to be teaching different types of classes. I was prepared to teach the classes that I'm teaching, but um, things like I was going to be conducting certain types of works as opposed to the works that that I'm teaching now, or that the type of student that I'm teaching. Just these ideas coming out because you're in grad school, you're kind of in this bubble, um, and only looking at certain types of choral literature because you're being taught certain types of things and getting prepared for certain types of things. And then you get to your first teaching job and you're kind of thrown into the fire, and you're like, oh, okay. um, I have, 15 sopranos and 2 tenors and 1 bass and no altos. Uh, okay.
Yeah, what do you do? What do you
What do
do?
I do?
Right.
Um, my first year teaching, I remember I had a gig that um I had not uh put together. It was a predecessor because I had come into the job, and so I hadn't picked the music. I was put on a transportation bus and the bus broke down. I was in the middle of nowhere. I didn't know who to call. My students were freaking out. I couldn't freak out. I didn't have any contact numbers. There's not a grad school class for that. Uh, I remember I called my mentor in tears that night going, this wasn't a class? What? And he just laughed and went, no, but did you handle it? Yes. Okay, then you're fine. So, budgets and uh, meetings that you have to go to and talk in, again, things that they don't teach you in grad school, but it's fine. You learn. You learn as you go.
Yeah, I find sometimes they call those the soft skills, but I think those are the hard skills sometimes, Um, just knowing how to deal with different scenarios whenever they're thrown at you, and it's never going to be the same two times in a row.
Mhm.
And how are you adaptable? And for me, I also had two things going at the same time: conflicting ideas of imposter syndrome combined with delusions of grandeur. You know, uh, you're laughing. I don't know. Maybe you felt similar, but
Absolutely. Yes, yes. There are things that I know that I can do. It's just I didn't know that I had the skill set somewhere in the back of my head. It's not that I can't do it. It's just I'd never been expected to do it, I guess. So yeah, it's just careers aren't all in the grad school, in the classroom. Sometimes it's in the trenches that you learn how to do it. So,
absolutely, yeah. Wow, that just took my mind down a memory path there. Yeah. Um, yeah, for sure. And I think we could talk a long time about just this whole idea of what we thought it should be and what it actually is. But there's such value, I think, in just like I said, going back to that idea of contentment without complacency. Don't be complacent with, the status quo. Always shoot for, higher goals and values and things like that. But be content to make great music with
mhm,
with the people that you have in front of you, and knowing that you're making an impact in the community in which you're planted. Um,
absolutely.
yeah, so I'm glad we kind of are in alignment there in our paths. That sounds
Yeah.
great. Okay, when you are working on maybe a passion project or you're in the zone on something, what does that look like for you?
Uh, I talk very quickly when that happens. My poor singers, if they're not used to me when that happens, I stop very little. I move around a lot. I have the singers move around a lot as far as I want the music in their bodies. Um, or the flip side, I will have them take the time to discuss the text and the history with me. I will have a dialogue with them. So it's one or the other. I'm either going to be going at a million miles an hour, uh, measure four, go, and there's hardly any time in between for them to think as far as they're just going along with me because we're just in the zone together. Or it will be a time for us to reflect together about um, this is what this is. What does this mean to you? How does this make you feel, sort of thing. So it's very strange. I'm either one or the other when it comes to that.
Gotcha. Yeah. I don't have anything to add to that. That was a great answer. Everybody has a little bit of a different answer on that, and I like yours. I feel like we all kind of get into those patterns of rehearsal, either quick paced or slow paced, depending on what's the need.
Mhm.
Um, so, what is and you have to just forgive the way my brain works here, but this in making this question up, but um, so think about like a sanctioned WWE wrestling style four-person tag team of choral directors. You can think about it in clinic or in session. Who are the other three choral directors you'd like in your corner that you could tag in?
Oh, um, well, I always want somebody who is, a giant, somebody who knows things backwards and forwards and upside down. So Joe Michael Scheibe, he just mentor, and he just always has something in his bag of tricks to fix things. And then a good friend of mine, who I went to school with, and she just uh, we work really well together. Rika Caffrey. I don't know if you are familiar with that name. She's I think she's in Boston College right now. And then somebody who I admire very, very much, Stephen Caldwell. I just watching him work in a rehearsal is just magic. Is all I can say. I've sat in a couple of rehearsals of his. It's just like, oh my goodness, I want to be here when I grow up, sort of thing.
Great. Yeah, and that's part of the reason I like this question because it's sort of selfish. I like to um, kind of get new people on my radar that I need to sort of check into, follow, and see what they're doing in their work. Of course, most people know Joe Michael Shabby, and yeah, I know Stephen Caldwell really well too. So, um, but yeah, gonna have to check in. What was the second name you said? Rita?
Rika Caffrey.
Rika Caffrey. Thank you.
Yes.
Writing that name down.
Yeah, she's
Hope
awesome.
everyone hope everyone else is as well. Um, okay, great. This is sort of a common topic in our profession right now, but and we talked a little bit about imposter syndrome and also those sorts of things, the stresses of the job and things that they don't teach you in grad school. When you get sort of overwhelmed, what do you do to relax and fight this burnout?
Mm. Well, when I do relax, like I said, my mother's an English teacher, so reading has always been a part of my life when I do take 2 seconds to read. So I love to read. I like to cook. My husband and I are big foodies, so we like to cook. And then in the last 4 years, I had some issues with my health, and so I kind of took control of that and started working out pretty intentionally. And so working out has been just something that just focuses my brain a lot. So that's just been part of the things that I do.
Just personally interested, what do your workouts look like?
Lifting weights, and then lots of cardio, whether it's elliptical or rowing or things like that. So,
Yeah, resistance training and heart
mhm.
rate. Okay,
Yes.
great. Love it. Um, who is another choral musician that you'd like to lift up? Maybe one that doesn't get as much attention as you think they deserve.
Oh, uh, just because he is one, he's a dear friend, but two, he works so hard. Carson Longhurst is just one, he's a sweetheart, and two, the work that he does is just great. Phenomenal musician, phenomenal human being. We went to school together, but he's just top notch.
I agree. Yeah. Carson and I are good friends too, ever since he moved to Oklahoma. Just a great guy. And
Yes,
he's now taken a new position at Oklahoma City University. So you
yes.
can you can look him up there. He's working with the incomparable Julie Yu. It's well known in the choral world. Um, so yeah, he's doing great work, and he's always been a great friend and always there. He is our. I hope I get to talk to him on this podcast soon. He is going to be our session chair for this conference as well. So you'll get to know Karsten. Um, Great. So now I'm gonna, if you're okay with it, we'll go into this Accelerando round. I don't typically give these questions out beforehand unless you've watched other podcasts that we've done. But these are not really related to choral music, but just so that we can kind of get to know you a little better. Shoot from the
Okay.
hip. First thing that comes to mind. Let's see how this goes. what is the uh, what is the worst job you've ever had outside of choral music?
Oh, uh, working at AQ Chicken House when I was 15.
And what was your job there?
I was a drive-through person.
Yeah, we've had a couple of those food industry jobs mentioned on on interviews before, so I understand. I was in food service for a while myself, and yeah, those are not fun, not not fun jobs, but in the community, important jobs. We appreciate those folks that are in food service, but hard agree. What is your guilty pleasure bad food to eat?
Oh, nachos. Loaded nachos. Gotta
Oh,
be
I was
loaded.
going to ask, yeah, what are your toppings? Yeah,
Oh yeah, no. And let's see. So we like, well, of course you have to have cheese and barbecue chicken and chive sour cream to the top, salsa, black beans. I mean, the whole fixings. So
yeah, that sounds delicious. I I don't know how my stomach would love it, but
that's later. That's
but yeah, that's right. Don't think about that.
exactly.
Oh, okay. If you had to do any other job besides being a musician of some kind, what would that be?
Uh, Probably what I was going to be before I was a choral musician, which is a pediatric surgeon.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. What what interested you in that path?
Uh, I come from a long line of medical peeps. And that was what I was supposed to be. I went, I was all lined up with pre-med classes and then I changed my mind. I love kids and really I was one of those that would watch surgery, like surgery tapes while eating spaghetti and I mean, I loved it. I would go into my grandfather's surgeries. He was an orthopedic surgeon and sit in the back and just watch. So I've always been pretty nerdy about things like that. So
Oh, that's super interesting. Okay. What is a movie or a TV show that you think everyone should watch at least once?
oh, Jiminy Cricket.
I don't know that one.
No.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
Oh goodness. I don't know. I guess I'm such a Gilmore Girls person, so basic. But anyway.
No, that's what I love about the question because it tells everybody a little bit about your personality, what you're into, what's on your list, what's on your to watch list, streaming services or otherwise. Yeah. Um, okay. What you have a choice here. What is the scariest moment of your life, or what has been your biggest phobia?
Biggest phobia. Spiders. Mm-mm.
You and
Nope.
my daughter both. Yeah, I've talked about this before, but she is so afraid of anything with long legs.
Hmm.
Um, we had one of those little just mosquito eaters, you can call them flying daddy long legs or whatever you want to call them,
Yeah.
on the wall. And I just pinched the wings and, still alive. I just showed it to her. She was screaming. I was like, we were
Nope.
doing a little cognitive behavioral therapy there, just little exposure
Nope.
therapy. Just saying, no, just look at it. I'm not asking you to eat it. Just look at it. She was having none of it. So
Nope.
completely get it. Completely get it. All right. Yeah, don't come at me. I'm not trying to be a mean dad. Just trying to expose my daughter to things she's going to experience in life. Um, great. So, what is one thing that you maybe spend way too much money on?
Oh, anything to do with shoes or clothes. I'm such a,
So you're a fashionista.
oh, if I have the money for it, yeah, absolutely.
That's great. Yeah, I'm so basic. Comfort over everything. Yeah. This shirt came from Amazon. I'm very
It's a good color.
yeah. Oh, thanks. Um, yeah, that's great. Well, every time I see you look dressed to the nines. So
Oh,
uh,
thanks.
you're doing much better than I am. Okay, let's see. What is a secret talent that most people might be surprised to learn about you?
Um, I'm an excellent swimmer.
Okay, great. You could be a lifeguard. You could save us. Um, perfect. What is the oldest thing in your fridge?
I'm oh, I'm a clean freak, so things get cleaned out every week, so nothing really old. Even though if my husband, well, my husband has this thing with sauces, so there's probably some sort of sriracha in there that he's probably hid in the back. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, condiments of some sort is a common
Yeah.
experience. Yep.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Invisibility. I have two kids and oh, just trying to get 3 seconds to myself sometimes in that house. Yeah, definitely visibility.
Gotcha. Understood. Um, okay, so if you could have, this is the last one. If you could have any message on a billboard for thousands to see, what might your message say?
Be truthful. I think a lot of people there's a lot of lies that people tell, even white lies, and it just hurts people more than they know. So just be truthful.
I like that. Be truthful. Hmm. I think we can all take that into our day today. Um, okay, so congratulations. You've achieved tempo presto for the Accelerando round. Thank you for playing. All right, what goals do you have for maybe this semester or this academic year? What are you most looking forward to in this season?
Uh, Continuing to build the program. I don't know about year end of the world, but COVID hit our school numbers pretty hard. So just continuing to rebuild after that. And then we are currently working on a project through Grand Area Creative Alliance. Whew, got that out. Which is putting on an abridged version of Messiah here in Miami, which hasn't been performed in 28, almost 30 years. And so we are joining forces with Grove Baptist Church, and we are going to be putting that on November 17th. So kind of a big project. We're bringing in musicians from Oklahoma City, and uh, it'll be the first time it's been performed around here in a couple decades. So yeah, it's going to be interesting and fun.
Wow, that's exciting. Yeah, good for you for getting that all together and aligned and giving your community that exposure that they haven't had in quite a while. So, yeah, congratulations. Okay, so that's the end of formally the interview. Where can people go to learn more about you and your work? Where can they get in touch with you?
They can, there's my school email, of course, which is, tatiana.e.taylor at neo.edu, really long. But we also have a social media page for the NEO choirs. We're both on Facebook and on Instagram, which is NEO choirs. I'm also on both of those. You can just look up Tatiana Taylor. So yeah.
Great. If you're okay with it, I'll kind of mask your email address because there are some bots and things on YouTube that fish through those descriptions looking for
Sure.
emails for spam and stuff. But I'll put it in there so that people can reach out to you and hopefully use you as a resource as an R&R chair for 2 year. But thank you so much again for joining me today on the podcast. It was good to see you again, connect with you. Hopefully we can collaborate soon and talk shop a little more.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me.